Okay, so I have walked away from many different traditional rugby training methods and approaches with my athletes that I've coached over the years, and the results themselves have really transformed how I think amateur rugby players should view their fitness, their training, and a little bit of their nutrition. And in this video, I'm going to share the key insights that I have found through my coaching that are helping amateur players throughout the world get stronger, get fitter, and get more explosive while staying injury-free season after season after season. Now, these insights extend all the way from real basic training methods all the way through to specific pre-match nutrition. So stay tuned for the whole episode to make sure that you find out what those are. And if you do find this episode useful at any point, please just hit the thumbs up button, because that makes a big difference to the growth of this channel and how I can get my message out through Rugby Muscle. That's all I'm going to really ask. With that being said, I'm going to go through 4 different breakthroughs that I have personally experienced via my coaching with my athletes, and I'm going to give you some key takeaways from those breakthroughs, stuff that you can put into your training, put into your overall approach to have some really profound effects and benefits with your S&C and with your rugby performance. Because at the end of the day, that is what this is really about. Starting with point number 1. Most amateur players are simply trying to do too much during the season in terms of their S&C. The old school approach with traditional S&C science would have suggested that you just try to hold on to whatever gains you've made through the off-season during the season, and that's all you're trying to do. Rugby players don't like to hear that, particularly amateur players that are only training twice a week, and I would tend to agree with that. But unfortunately, the pendulum has sort of swung too far, and they actually end up trying to do too much, and that costs them. And there's usually one very, very easy tweak that you can make that will make a huge improvement within your performance on game day and your recovery, and because of that, your S&C progress as a whole throughout the season. You see, most rugby clubs have a schedule with their rugby training on Tuesdays and Thursday nights with their games on Saturdays. And because players need to arrange their own S&C around this, they usually make a big mistake that I want to correct here. Just to be clear, if you train on different days and it isn't Tuesday and Thursday nights and maybe not Saturday games, this idea will still apply, but I'm just going to use the classic Tuesday, Thursday as a template because that is the most popular one. That is the one that clubs use throughout the world, and most of the guys that I work with, that's what we're dealing with. But if you have different days, obviously just take these principles and apply them to your days that you use. The problem that comes from this mistake, unfortunately, isn't really that obvious because it takes time to manifest in its decreased performance that you might not even be able to tell because you might just end up doing less. There's also increased injury risk and overall feelings of burnout and plateauing within your performance, not just on the pitch, but also in the gym. And this is all primarily due to accumulated fatigue from inadequate in-season training management. And before I get into what that looks like, tell me if this sounds familiar. You have training on Tuesdays and Thursday nights, so you hit the gym really hard on your Mondays and your Wednesdays to allow you to be fresh for those rugby training sessions, and then obviously you take Friday off to allow you to be fresh for the games. It makes sense in a way, but only if you ignore the fact that you're stacking these 3 to 4 highly fatiguing days on top of each other from Monday to Thursday, and then by the time Friday rolls around, you're going to be feeling pretty knackered and you need to take the day off anyway. Now, the solution to this is basically to take Wednesdays as a mid-week break. Ideally, you want your lifts on the same day as your rugby sessions, just so that you can condense that fatigue into one day and then allow your recovery to be spread throughout the week. But for those who that isn't possible, I would suggest you switch to a 2-session gym focus during your playing season, where you have one heavier day at the beginning of the week and then one lighter explosive day prior to game day to get you firing on all cylinders and sort of fire it up, ready, primed for your game day on the Saturday. Of course, there are so many different ways to organize your training week within the season, but this idea here is that you should have a day off or a lighter day during the week, and you should condense your highly stressful stuff into shorter periods of time. So rather than spread all of your fatigue and stuff throughout the week to allow that fatigue to compound, what you want to do is like single days of real hard effort, or if you have to, Monday and Tuesday of your hard effort, take Wednesday to regenerate, recover, get ready for the back end of the week, and then the back end of the week is lower volume, a lot less stressful, and it should have you peaking onto your game day on Saturday. And there are so many different ways that you can arrange your training depending on what you need, whether that's conditioning, whether that's speed, power, strength, hypertrophy, whatever it is that you specifically need, and with whichever your days come for rugby, that there are just too many to get through with this video. And that's also what I wrote about in the training week playbook. It's a full guide on how you can organize your training week to be as productive as possible. You can access that in the links below. And now what I want you to understand is that the real breakthrough isn't about doing more. It's about understanding that during the season, strategic recovery days like those Wednesdays, which is just a general rule of thumb. Wednesdays is by far the best day because then you can have Thursday, Friday, ready to smash Saturday. But you want those recovery days to create the performance advantage that you've been grinding for, because those days let your body fully absorb and recover from the massive stimulus that the rugby training, that the targeted strength work or hard fitness work will give you. And then this allows you to be fresh enough to reach high levels of performance, not just within your games, which is obviously the most important thing through the season, but also in the gym, so that you can actually continue to make those progressions within your S&C training instead of fighting a constant state of accumulated fatigue. That way you can go into each and every week, each and every training session, knowing that you are fresh enough to do what you're capable of doing, knowing that fatigue isn't really going to hold you back, knowing that you can perform at your best because you're going to earn that rest elsewhere within each and every training. Now moving on to breakthrough number 2. This is something that I'm going to continue to develop on this channel and within Rugby Muscle. Got lots of stuff coming around this, and this is that most rugby players think that aerobic fitness is just about not getting tired or even performing better when you're tired. But what I've discovered over the last few years will completely change how you view your aerobic conditioning, because the benefits go way deeper than just match specific endurance. But that's not what this breakthrough is as far as aerobic work goes, because I think it actually goes much deeper than that, and I think there's many other reasons that you should really consider incorporating more aerobic work as part of your training as a rugby player. And this point is best illustrated with the story of a prop that I worked with, who before he worked with me was absolutely petrified that doing too much conditioning would absolutely wreck his strength, make him lose power, and that led to him skipping most of the cardio work, if not all of the cardio work, when it came to his in-season training. And he would basically do more and more strength work, as much strength work as he could, so that he could keep up his strength for the pitch. He found himself obviously getting gassed as the season went on, but what was interesting was that when his team started collating stats, he realized that he was also getting through less work. He was making less carries, hiding behind rucks, and really just doing less and less on the pitch, whilst actually struggling more with his cardio, with his breathing, whilst getting more and more tired from doing less work. This, credit to him, caused him to reach out to me, because a lot of players would just hide behind that and say, okay, that's fine, I'm a prop, I'm allowed to get through less work. But he knew that he needed to do more. So when he started working with me, he finally committed to consistent aerobic sessions. We hit just 3 easy sessions a week during the off season, and shortly thereafter his work capacity skyrocketed. And suddenly, as we were going through the season, he had the energy to maintain his technique and his strength when it mattered most. And similar to the last point, because he was able to recover better with a stronger aerobic system, this also allowed him to be fresher for his gym work. He was able to finally get through all of his accessories and feel fresh and get through sessions that used to take him 2+ hours in no more than 60 minutes. And because of this, he eventually hit the coveted 4-plate bench press. That's 180 kilos, which was a lifetime goal for him, which he actually managed to hit whilst doing less strength sessions and doing more cardio. And this reaffirmed to me massively that aerobic fitness isn't just about running more on the pitch. It really is the foundation that lets you express everything within your body that you can show on the pitch, in the gym, that lets your power, your strength, your explosivity, even your speed actually show up when it counts on game day. And obviously, of course, in the gym as well. So it's like win, win, win. What I want you to do is start really incorporating 2 to 3 low intensity aerobic sessions per week during your in-season training. If you are already training 4 times a week in the gym, cut that in half and do 2 of those as aerobic sessions, and you will be able to get more out of your strength sessions as a result of this. These sessions could be really easy, just 20 to 45 minutes of running, cycling or rowing at a really easy pace where you can hold a conversation, or they could also be tempo sprint intervals. There's lots of different ways. I've mentioned different conditioning sessions that you can do on this channel, and I've got more to come on that. It doesn't really matter when or how you do it because of the low fatigue cost of most aerobic work. It's just that you stick with it because this aerobic base over time will dramatically improve your recovery and your ability to perform when it counts. If you're recovering during your hard efforts within the game better, if you're recovering from your games, from your training sessions better, you're going to be fresher throughout the season when it counts, and you're going to be able to make more and more and more progress. The real breakthrough isn't just that aerobic fitness prevents fatigue in the final 20 minutes of a game, it's that it continually compounds all of your other gains, all of your speed efforts, your strength efforts, by keeping your nervous system fresh enough to actually express that power that you've built in the gym, meaning every sprint, tackle and ruck, not just in the fourth quarter, but throughout the game, throughout the week, every training session, enabling you to up-level your skills as well at the same time and showcase your peak abilities rather than a constant desperate scramble to try to stay above water because you're so exhausted. So let me ask you, have you ever noticed how the players who are doing their fitness work, who are leading the pack on their fitness, are also the ones that are much more liable to improve within their tactical sessions, within their skill sessions, within your rugby and within rugby seasons? It is no coincidence. Let me know in the comments below if you have. So breakthrough insight number 3 is that most rugby players really do waste so much time in the gym doing way too many sets on each exercise. And I really believe this costs them not only with fatigue, but also with the stimulus that they're able to get from the gym and the training session itself. I remember when I started working with a flanker last year who absolutely loved the 5x5 approach. He had a background in powerlifting, 5 sets of 5 on the big compound lifts. That was his bread and butter. That was what most of his gym sessions looked like. And the first thing that I got him to do when we started working together was to cut the amount of sets down to 3 and then eventually 2. And this was because he said to me specifically that he experienced himself not able to push and get stronger throughout the season because of these gym sessions. I do this with a lot of players that I work with, and they usually ask a similar question to what this guy asked. He said, what's the use in cutting down these sets? Won't I get weaker by doing less? And I asked him, and I'll ask you now, what do you think? Do you think that by lifting weights every week but doing a few less sets, you'll experience such a drop-off that not only do you not get stronger, you don't even maintain and you actually get weaker? Of course not. You are at the very least, able to efficiently maintain your strength. And I would argue that if you were not getting stronger by doing all of these extra sets and not seeing that progress on the bar, you're not doing any worse. In fact, you're probably doing better. And more importantly, now you've saved yourself a bunch of fatigue and soreness that just isn't giving you returns. It's not giving you the benefits that you thought it was going to give you, especially if over the weeks, because of reducing the amount of sets that you're doing, you're able to add weight to the bar, add weight to your lifts, which means that you're actually now getting stronger. You see, most strength advice comes from people whose sole concern is strength. Your power lifters, your strongman, or the people that just, all they do is work out. They're not worried about performance in the sport. That is more than enough to make a big difference on the pitch as a rugby player. So what I want you to do is look at your strength training, look at what you're trying to do in the gym, and really think about the minimum amount of strength work that you can realistically maintain and still continue to see progress by adding weight to the bar, adding weight to the lifts over time, and not necessarily even week on week on week, but over the course of months. If you're able to add weight to your main lifts or to your big lifts, or any lift really, you're going to be getting stronger. And don't forget that you can always add more back in, and as long as you're maintaining, you're not losing anything. And if you're not getting anywhere with all this high volume, with doing multiple sets, then it's not really costing you anything because what you're currently doing is also not working. Once that you've gotten fitter and are better equipped to handle that volume, you're better able to recover because you've got a stronger, now more robust aerobic system, and now you've got more time to do that aerobic work because you've cut down your sets. It really is a win-win-win way of approaching your training to be able to continue to get stronger without experiencing all of that fatigue and soreness. Because remember, you don't want to be sore for your rugby training or your matches. You don't really want to be too sore even in the off season because you've got so much other work that you should be targeting that will make a huge difference on the pitch as a rugby player. Your speed work, your quality conditioning work, your power work, All this other stuff requires an amount of freshness that you might not experience if you are handling all of your strength training on a high volume approach akin to what a powerlifter might be doing. And if you're making progress, you're adding weight to your big lifts or your main lifts or any lifts, you're making progress. You don't need to add more in. This is a success. And then my final point is about game day nutrition. So sports nutrition is obviously a really important area that you want to look into as a serious rugby player if you want to maximize your performance. If you want, I can make a whole separate video going over exact game day nutrition ideas. And if you'd like that, let me know in the comments below. That being said, nearly every single player that has asked me in my DMs or as a member of Team Rubbing Muscle specifically about what should I eat on game day, they're essentially looking for a shortcut, a silver bullet, a magic pill that is going to make them feel fresh on game day without the underlying physiology to back it up. Don't forget, the fitter and stronger you are, the better your potential for your performance, regardless of your food intake, right? You can put the highest octane fuel into your 1998 Vauxhall Corsa as you'd like, but if you've done nothing with the engines, the tires, or the suspension, it's going to get smoked by a brand new, faster car with a better engine, running off of even the crappiest fuel, right? If that analogy doesn't hold up, just maybe relate to feeding Antoine Dupont nothing but wine for 48 hours before a game and wonder whether he would still outperform the perfectly carbo-loaded, low-level amateur rugby players. Of course he would. That's just what it is. It's not about nutrition. Nutrition is what allows you to realize all of your maximal potential, but your maximal potential is governed by your underlying physiology, how fit, how strong, how powerful and fast you are, and how good of a rugby player you are. So instead of looking for the perfect pre-game food, just be sure that you get a decent amount of carbs in the day before a game and a decent carb intake on the morning of. I can go again into detail in a future video, but for now, focus on the other things that I've mentioned in this video here, and you'll have much more of a performance boost on the pitch than having an extra bowl of pasta or whatever energy drink has you buzzing and flying off the walls in your changing room right before you go out before kickoff. Now, if you do want to be firing on all cylinders, playing your absolute best rugby, no matter what level you play at, I am available for one-on-one online coaching. You can find the details in the description below, and from there you can reach out and we'll chat about how it can work for you if this is something that you want to pursue and take your rugby and performance to the next level. That is the episode done and the podcast for today. If you did, please drop a comment below and let me know which breakthrough from today's video you're going to implement first or which resonated best with you. I'd love to hear from you. Comments below always really do help out, and even if you're listening on Spotify, hit those three dots, drop a comment, and I look forward to responding to you. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell because we've got a lot of really clear actionable advice for amateur rugby players coming your way. So stay tuned and I'll see you in the next one.